What's preventing you from dating? The words struck me like a blow to the chest as I stood there with my briefcase in hand, prepared to depart for the day. Amelia Crawford, my new CEO, was obstructing the doorway to my cubicle, her arms crossed, her eyes sharp and demanding. For years, that's how long I'd labored at Sterling Financial Group. And for years, she'd apparently been observing me depart at precisely the same time every single day. I didn't comprehend what to state. My mouth felt dry, and I could feel my heart beating faster in a manner that had nothing to execute with attraction and everything to execute with fear. Fear that someone was ultimately inquiring the question I'd been avoiding since the day I commenced this job. Everyone discusses it, she continued, accepting a step closer. Her voice wasn't mean, but it wasn't kind either. It was the voice of someone who was accustomed to acquiring answers. For years, and not once have you joined us for drinks after work. Not once have you mentioned a girlfriend or a date or even someone you're interested in. What are you concealing? I rotated slowly to confront her. And for the initial time since she'd commenced 6 months ago, I permitted her observe past the wall I'd constructed around myself. I didn't acquire angry. I didn't acquire defensive. I just felt tired, so incredibly tired. You genuinely desire to comprehend. My voice arrived out quieter than I intended. She nodded, and I could observe something shift in her expression. Perhaps she was anticipating me to create a joke or brush her off like I executed with everyone else. But I just stood there glancing at her, wondering if I should inform the truth or provide her another excuse that would create her depart me alone. Encounter me in my office in 10 minutes, she stated ultimately, and don't depart yet. I think we require to discuss. I watched her walk away, her heels clicking against the floor, and I felt something heavy settle in my stomach. This conversation was arriving whether I desired it or not. I'd managed to avoid it for 4 years, but apparently my time was up. Let me back up and clarify how I acquired here. 6 months ago, Amelia Crawford walked through the doors of Sterling Financial Group as our new CEO. She was 31 years old, which made her the youngest individual to ever hold that position in our company. Individuals whispered about her in the break room, wondering if she'd earned it or if it was just because her family possessed money and connections. I didn't concern either manner. I maintained my head down and executed my work. But Amelia wasn't the variety to permit individuals maintain their heads down. During her initial week, she pulled every single performance report from the last 5 years. She studied them like they held the secrets to the universe. I recognized this because my desk was close sufficient to her office that I could hear her on the phone inquiring questions about numbers and patterns and employee behavior. It was only a matter of time before she noticed me. My file was clean, perhaps too clean. 4 years of perfect performance reviews, never late, never absent, never a single mistake in any of my quarterly reports. Our clients loved laboring with me because I was reliable and careful, and I actually listened to what they required. I was beneficial at my job, genuinely beneficial, but I'd also declined 3 promotions. 3 separate times the company had offered me a chance to become a team leader, which arrived with more money, more responsibility, and more respect. 3 times I'd stated no thank you. Most individuals at Sterling would have killed for even one of those opportunities. I'd walked away from all of them without a second thought. On a Tuesday afternoon, about 2 weeks after she commenced, Amelia contacted me into her office. I arrived at precisely 3, not a minute early or late, and sat down in the chair across from her desk. She possessed my file open in front of her, and I could observe she'd marked certain pages with little sticky notes. I've been reviewing your file, she stated, maintaining her voice professional and neutral. You're one of our strongest performers. Why have you declined every leadership opportunity we've offered you? I prepared for this question. I recognized it would arrive eventually. I prefer to depart at 5:30, I informed her. The team lead position requires longer hours. I'm not interested in remaining late. She leaned forward, and I could observe genuine confusion in her eyes. Most individuals would execute anything for these opportunities. Why don't you desire to advance? Don't you desire more out of your career? Not everyone desires to climb the ladder, Miss Crawford. I maintained my voice calm and gentle, the manner I'd practiced 100 times in my head. Some of us have already discovered what we're seeking for. She stared at me for a long moment, like she was attempting to solve a puzzle that didn't create sense. In her world, I could inform everyone desired more. More money, more power, more status. The idea that someone might be satisfied with precisely where they were seemed impossible to her. That's all, she stated ultimately, dismissing me with a wave of her hand. I could inform she was frustrated. I departed her office and proceeded back to my desk, but I could feel her observing me for the remainder of the afternoon. I'd provided her an answer, but it wasn't the genuine answer. And somehow, I think she recognized that. My words had planted a question in her mind that she couldn't permit go of, and I possessed a feeling that question was going to expand into something larger. That evening, like every evening, I packed up my things at precisely 5:25. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. I didn't halt to chat by the water cooler or verify my email one final time. I just walked out of the building, acquired into my vehicle, and drove away. I possessed somewhere to be, and I couldn't be late. Not today, not ever. The journey from Sterling Financial Group to Riverside Memorial Hospital accepted precisely 20 minutes if I caught the lights correctly. I'd created this journey so many times that I could execute it with my eyes closed. I recognized every rotation, every stoplight, every pothole in the road. It was the most important 20 minutes of my day. I pulled into the visitor parking lot at 5:45 and walked through the front entrance. The security guard at the desk nodded at me without inquiring for ID. The nurses on the third floor smiled as I passed. Nobody inquired me to sign in anymore. After 4 years, I was as much a portion of this place as the walls and the fluorescent lights. Room 312 was at the conclusion of the hall where the afternoon sun arrived through the windows and created the white walls appear less cold. I pushed open the door and stepped inside. And there she was, Grace, my wife, the woman I'd married 7 years ago, who'd been lying in this bed for the last 4 years. She appeared peaceful, like she was just sleeping and might wake up any moment. Her chest rose and fell with the steady rhythm of the ventilator. Her hair had expanded longer since the accident, and I'd learned how to brush it the manner she used to prefer it. The nurses had offered to execute it for me, but I always stated no. This was my job. Accepting care of Grace was my job. I pulled the chair close to her bed and sat down, reaching for her hand. Her skin was warm, and I wrapped my fingers around hers gently. "Hey, sweetheart," I stated softly. "Long day today. We acquired a new CEO about 6 months ago. Her name's Amelia, and she's been inquiring a lot of questions today. She inquired why I don't desire to advance in my career, why I always depart at the same time." I laughed, but it sounded hollow in the quiet room. I didn't comprehend how to clarify that I already possessed the most important job in the world, right here with you. I reached into my bag and pulled out the book we'd been reading together, a romance novel Grace had picked up at the airport 4 years and 3 months ago, right before the accident. She'd been so excited about it, discussing about the characters and the love story like they were genuine individuals. We'd only created it through the initial few chapters before everything fell apart. But I'd maintained reading every single day for 4 years. I'd been reading this book to her out loud. Some days I read for 10 minutes, other days for an hour. I never skipped ahead. We were going to finish this story together, even if together appeared different than either of us had planned. Chapter 27, I stated, opening to the page I'd marked last time. I commenced reading, my voice steady and calm, informing Grace about characters falling in love and overcoming obstacles and discovering their manner back to each other. I wondered sometimes if she could hear me. The doctor stated probably not, but I didn't concern what they stated. I read anyway. While I was positioned in that hospital room, Amelia Crawford was still at her office thinking about our conversation. I didn't comprehend this at the time, but she informed me later that she couldn't halt wondering about what I'd stated. Some of us have already discovered what we're seeking for. What did that signify? Where did I proceed every night? Why was departing at 5:30 so important that I'd provide a promotions and career advancement and everything most individuals desired? She commenced paying closer attention to me after that day. She noticed small things like how I always consumed lunch at my desk instead of joining the groups that gathered in the break room. How I never participated in office gossip or small discussion. How I deflected personal questions with practiced skill, always rotating the conversation back to work topics before anyone could dig too deep. My desk was completely vacant of personal items, no photographs of family or friends, no coffee mug with a funny saying, no calendar with vacation days marked, nothing that would provide anyone a clue about who I was outside of this building. It was intentional. I maintained my two lives completely separate. The genuine break in my carefully constructed wall occurred on a Thursday afternoon about a month after that conversation in Amelia's office. I was walking to my vehicle at 5:30, just like always when my phone rang. I pulled it out and observed the hospital's number on the display. My heart jumped into my throat. "Hello," I responded quickly, pressing the phone to my ear. "Mr. Patterson, this is Nurse Linda from Riverside. Everything's fine, don't concern. I just desired to update you on Grace's day." I permitted out a breath I didn't comprehend I'd been holding. "Acceptable, thank you. How was she today?" "Very peaceful. We adjusted her position this morning and she seemed comfortable. The physical therapist arrived by and labored with her limbs to prevent muscle loss. Everything proceeded smoothly." "Did she seem comfortable?" I inquired, recognizing it was a strange question. Grace couldn't inform us if she was comfortable or not, but I inquired anyway every single time. "Yes," Linda stated gently. She comprehended why I inquired. She seemed very comfortable. "Beneficial? That's beneficial. Inform her I'm on my manner. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I concluded the contact and stood there for a moment in the parking lot, feeling the weight of relief wash over me. No news was beneficial news when it arrived to Grace's condition. Every day that nothing altered was a small victory. What I didn't comprehend was that Amelia Crawford had been walking to her own vehicle just 3 rows over. She'd heard the entire conversation. She'd heard the concern in my voice, the manner it softened when I discussed to the nurse, the tenderness when I stated to inform her I was on my manner. She stood there with her vehicle keys in her hand, frozen, wondering who she was. The next morning, Amelia executed something she wasn't proud of. She walked straight to HR and inquired them to pull my emergency contact information. Just for our records, she informed them, her voice steady, even though her hands shook slightly, ensuring everything's updated. The HR assistant didn't question it. Why would she? Amelia was the CEO. She could inquire for anything she desired. When the file arrived back, there was only one number listed under emergency contacts, Riverside Memorial Hospital Long-Term Care Wing. No parent, no sibling, no friend, just a hospital. Amelia stared at that single line for a long time. She closed the file and positioned it on her desk, but she couldn't halt thinking about it. During lunch, while everyone else proceeded to the cafe down the street, she remained in her office with the door closed. She opened her laptop and typed Riverside Memorial Long-Term Care into the search bar. The facility's website loaded slowly. When it executed, the initial thing she observed was a photo of a peaceful hallway with soft lighting. Below it, words that created her chest tight, providing compassionate care for patients with severe brain injuries, comas, and persistent vegetative states. When hope requires time, we're here. Amelia read every page on that website. She learned about their specialized staff, their family support programs, their commitment to treating patients with dignity, even when recovery seemed impossible. She read testimonials from families who visited daily, who hadn't provided up, who still believed their loved ones could hear them. Her hands trembled as she closed the browser. I possessed someone at that facility, someone I visited every single day, someone I contacted to inquire if they seemed comfortable, someone who created me depart at precisely 5:25 without fail. She. The word echoed in her mind. I had stated she on that phone contact. That Friday, the company held its monthly happy hour at a bar downtown. Amelia appeared up because she possessed to. As CEO, individuals anticipated to observe her there mingling and smiling and pretending she enjoyed small discussion about quarterly projections. She stood near the bar, nursing a glass of wine she hadn't actually drunk from when she heard my name mentioned across the room. $5 says he's acquired a secret wife, someone from accounting stated loud, sufficient for half the bar to hear. No guy that quiet remained single for 4 years without concealing something. Perhaps he's just boring, another voice offered. You ever notice he never discusses about his life? It's like he doesn't exist outside the office. Or perhaps he's one of those guys who's married to his work, a third individual chimed in. You comprehend the variety. Resides alone, possesses no hobbies, probably precedes residents and stares at spreadsheets for fun. They all laughed. Amelia didn't. She recognized more than they executed now. She recognized about the hospital, about the daily visits, about the someone who was waiting for me every evening. But that knowledge sat heavy in her chest, feeling less like power and more like a secret she hadn't earned the right to maintain. She departed the happy hour early and drove residents through streets blurred by streetlights. In her apartment, she poured herself another glass of wine and stood at her window, glancing out at the city below. Somewhere out there, I was visiting someone at Riverside Memorial. Somewhere out there, I was maintaining a promise that no one at the office recognized about. And Amelia realized something that created her feel hollow inside. She was 31 years old. She'd dated plenty of individuals. She'd possessed relationships that lasted months, even a couple that lasted years. But she'd never loved anyone sufficient to visit them every single day. She'd never created a promise she'd maintained for 4 years straight. She'd never positioned another individual ahead of her career, her comfort, her own schedule. What did that state about her? The weekend passed slowly. Amelia attempted to distract herself with work, with errands, with a yoga class she'd been signifying to attempt. Nothing assisted. By Monday morning, she'd created a decision. She was proceeding to Riverside Memorial. The excuse was easy sufficient. Sterling Financial donated to various healthcare charities every year, and Amelia was responsible for determining which organizations received grants. It created perfect sense for her to tour facilities, inquire questions, evaluate their programs. No one would question it. She contacted Riverside Memorial on Monday afternoon and scheduled a tour for Wednesday morning. The director sounded pleased, even excited. We'd be honored to demonstrate you our facility, Miss Crawford. How does 10 work for you? Perfect, Amelia stated, her voice calmer than she felt. Wednesday arrived cold and gray. Amelia dressed carefully that morning, selecting professional clothes that stated CEO on official business rather than woman attempting to solve a mystery. She informed her assistant she'd be out until noon and drove across town to Riverside Memorial. The building appeared different than she'd imagined, not sterile and scary, but warm, almost peaceful. The front entrance possessed large windows that permitted in natural light, and there were plants everywhere, green and alive and thriving. The director encountered her in the lobby. Her name was Dr. Patricia Coleman, and she possessed kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a simple bun. Miss Crawford, welcome. Thank you so much for considering us for your foundation support. They shook hands. Amelia forced herself to smile. Thank you for possessing me. I'm eager to learn about your work here. The tour was thorough. Dr. Coleman demonstrated her everything. The physical therapy wing where staff assisted patients maintain muscle tone. The family support center where loved ones could discover counseling and resources. The memorial garden where individuals could sit and think and breathe. Our residents are here because someone refused to provide up on them. Dr. Coleman clarified as they walked. Every individual in this building possesses at minimum one individual who believes they're worth combating for. That's what creates our work meaningful. Amelia nodded, her throat tight. She recognized they were acquiring closer to the patient rooms. Her heart pounded so difficult she wondered if Dr. Coleman could hear it. They rotated down a long hallway, the east corridor according to the sign on the wall. Afternoon light streamed through windows at the distant conclusion, creating everything glow soft and golden. And then Amelia observed room 312. Through the window, I sat beside a hospital bed. A woman lay there, motionless except for the rise and fall of her chest. She possessed brown hair spread across the pillow, and peaceful features that might have been beautiful once might still be beautiful now, in a different manner. I held a book in one hand and her hand in my other, and my lips relocated as I read aloud. Amelia halted walking. She couldn't relocate. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't glance away. That's one of our longest residents, Dr. Coleman stated softly, following Amelia's gaze. Grace Patterson, traumatic brain injury from a vehicle accident about 4 years ago. Drunk driver ran a red light. She was only 28 when it occurred. Amelia's hands clenched at her sides. 28. So young. Too young. Her husband arrives every day, Dr. Coleman continued. Every single day without fail. Rain, snow, holidays, doesn't matter. He's never missed once. Not in 4 years. Husband. The word struck Amelia like cold water. Not boyfriend, not partner, husband. I was married. Some of our families struggle to visit once a month, Dr. Coleman stated, her voice carrying a mix of sadness and admiration. The emotional toll is enormous, but that man right there, he reads to her for an hour every evening. Discusses to her about his day, brushes her hair, he transports her flowers every week. Always the same variety, yellow roses. He states they were her favorite. Through the window, Amelia watched me rotate a page in the book. My expression was soft, open, completely different from the careful blankness I wore at the office. This was who I genuinely was when no one from work was observing. This was the man beneath the professional armor. Does she respond at all? Amelia heard herself inquire. Doctor? Coleman shook her head. Not yet. Her doctors don't anticipate she ever will. The damage was too severe. But her husband refuses to accept that. He believes she can hear him, that somewhere inside she's still there. Amelia felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she blinked them back. How does he execute it? How does he maintain arriving back when there's no hope? Dr. Coleman smiled sadly. Who states there's no hope? Perhaps hope appears different than we think it should. Perhaps hope is just appearing up day after day, whether anyone's observing or not. They relocated on to finish the tour, but Amelia barely heard anything else, Dr. Coleman stated. Her mind remained in that room with me and Grace, replaying the image of my hand wrapped around my wife's fingers, my voice reading words she couldn't hear, my face demonstrating a tenderness I never revealed at Sterling Financial. When the tour concluded, Amelia thanked Dr. Coleman and promised to consider Riverside Memorial for the Foundation's grant program. Then she walked out to her vehicle, acquired inside, and sat very still. For a long moment, she executed nothing. Just sat there with her hands on the steering wheel, staring at the hospital entrance. Then she commenced crying. Enormous, gasping sobs that arrived from somewhere deep in her chest. She cried for Grace, lying in that bed for 4 years. She cried for me, visiting every single day without fail. She cried for the love that maintained appearing up even when it acquired nothing back. But mostly she cried for herself, because Amelia was 31 years old and she'd never loved anyone the manner I loved Grace. She'd dated successful men, attractive men, intelligent men. She'd possessed relationships that appeared beneficial on paper, but she'd never loved anyone sufficient to visit them every single day. She'd never created a promise she maintained when it became difficult. She'd never selected another individual over her career, her schedule, her own comfort. Every time a relationship had interfered with work, she'd concluded it. Every time someone had inquired for more of her time, she'd stated no. She informed herself that love could wait, that success mattered more, that she required to construct her career initially and everything else would fall into place later. But positioned in that parking lot, observing the sun sink toward the horizon, Amelia realized she'd been lying to herself for years. I hadn't sacrificed success for love. I'd sacrificed success to maintain a promise. I'd selected presence over promotion, devotion over advancement, and I'd executed it not because it was easy or convenient or because I anticipated anything in return. I'd executed it because some promises didn't conclude just because it became difficult to maintain. Amelia wiped her face with shaking hands. She glanced at herself in the rearview mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Her makeup was ruined. Her eyes were red and swollen. She appeared broken. Perhaps she was. She commenced her vehicle and drove back to the office slowly. By the time she arrived, it was almost 3. She proceeded straight to her office and closed the door. For the remainder of the afternoon, she attempted to work, attempted to concentrate on reports and emails and budget projections, but her mind maintained drifting back to room 312, to Grace lying motionless in that bed, to me positioned beside her with infinite patience. At 5, Amelia stood at her window and glanced down at the parking lot. Right on schedule, I walked out of the building toward my vehicle. I relocated with purpose, like someone who recognized precisely where he required to be and refused to waste even a minute acquiring there. I acquired in my vehicle and drove away. Amelia watched until my vehicle disappeared around the corner. Then she sat down at her desk and created a decision. She pulled out her phone and contacted the Riverside Memorial Director. Dr. Coleman, this is Amelia Crawford. I'd like to discuss a donation to your facility. They discussed for 20 minutes. When Amelia disconnected, she'd arranged for Sterling Financial's foundation to create an anonymous donation to Riverside Memorial's long-term care fund, sufficient to cover one patient's expenses for the next 5 years. One specific patient, Grace Patterson, room 312. Can you guarantee this remains completely anonymous? Amelia inquired. The patient's husband shouldn't comprehend where the money arrived from. Naturally, Dr. Coleman assured her, we respect donor privacy. Absolutely. Amelia concluded the contact and sat back in her chair. It wasn't much. It wouldn't wake Grace up or transport her back or create anything easier for me, but it would signify I wouldn't possess to concern about medical bills on top of everything else. It would signify one less weight. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. I recognized the number instantly. Riverside Memorial. My heart halted. Mr. Patterson, this is Director Morrison. I'm contacting with some news about your wife. I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. My hand gripped the phone so difficult it hurt. She demonstrated signs of responsiveness this morning. Purposeful movement. She squeezed the nurse's hand when inquired to. The world tilted sideways. 4 years. For 4 years of waiting, of reading, of discussing to someone who never responded. And now, are you certain? My voice cracked. Yes. Her neurologist is cautiously optimistic. We'd like you to arrive in as soon as possible. I was standing before I realized I'd relocated. I grabbed my briefcase, my keys, my jacket. Individuals stared as I rushed past them toward the elevator. Amelia's office door was open and she glanced up as I passed. Are you acceptable? She contacted after me. I halted, rotated back, our eyes encountered, and something in my expression must have informed her because her face altered. Proceed, she stated softly. Whatever it is, proceed. I drove to Riverside Memorial faster than I should have. My hands shook on the steering wheel. When I reached room 312, the neurologist was waiting outside. We desire to attempt something, she stated. We desire you to discuss to her, read to her like you usually execute. Let's observe if she responds again. I sat beside Grace's bed and picked up our book with trembling hands. Hey, sweetheart, I whispered. I'm here. I'm always here. I commenced reading, my voice shaking. We were near the conclusion of the book now. Just a few chapters remaining. I read for 5 minutes, then 10. Nothing occurred. My heart sank. Then, so faint I almost missed it, her fingers twitched against mine. Not a random movement, a squeeze. Purposeful, deliberate. I halted, reading. Grace, can you hear me? Squeeze my hand if you can hear me. Another squeeze. Stronger this time. Tears poured down my face. That's it. That's my girl. I'm here. I've been here the whole time. The neurologist examined Grace immediately after that initial squeeze. She ran tests, verified responses, consulted with other specialists. Everyone relocated quickly but carefully, afraid to hope too much, but unable to conceal their excitement. After 4 years of no alteration, any alteration was massive. Her brain activity has increased, the neurologist informed me an hour later. Not dramatically, but measurably. Something is waking up in there. We'll monitor her closely over the next few days and weeks. This could be the beginning of genuine recovery, or it could plateau. We just don't comprehend yet. I nodded, unable to speak. I sat beside Grace's bed, holding her hand, observing for any sign of movement. Her eyelids fluttered occasionally, her fingers twitched, small things, tiny things, everything. I contacted my boss and informed her I required to accept some time off. Amelia didn't inquire questions. Accept whatever you require, she stated. Your job will be here when you're prepared. For the next 2 weeks, I barely departed the hospital. I read to Grace constantly. I discussed about everything and nothing. I informed her about the past 4 years, about all the days I'd visited, about how I'd never halted believing, and slowly, impossibly, she began to respond more. A finger movement here, a flutter of her eyelids there. Then, one morning, her eyes opened just for a few seconds. She glanced at me without recognition, without focus, but her eyes were open. She was glancing at the world again. The doctor stated recovery would be long and uncertain. Brain injuries like hers didn't follow predictable paths. She might regain everything. She might regain very little. There was no manner to comprehend except to wait and labor and hope. I proceeded back to work after those 2 weeks, but everything was different. I still departed at 5:30, but now I departed with actual hope instead of just stubborn faith. Amelia noticed immediately. Something's altered, she stated one afternoon when we were reviewing reports together. I glanced up at her. We've been dancing around so much for months now, all these unspoken things hanging between us. Grace responded. I stated quietly. For the initial time in 4 years, she squeezed my hand. Then her eyes opened. Amelia's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, that's incredible. It is, I agreed. The doctors don't comprehend how much she'll recover, but it's something. After 4 years of nothing, it's everything. I'm so happy for you, Amelia stated. And I could observe she signified it, but I could also observe something else in her eyes, something that appeared like sadness mixed with the happiness. Thank you, I stated, for everything, for comprehending when nobody else executed, for protecting my time, for observing me when I was attempting difficult not to be observed. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. That's what friends execute. Friends. The word sat heavy between us. We both recognized there was more than friendship expanding here, but we also both recognized it couldn't proceed anywhere. Not now. Perhaps not ever. Weeks rotated into months. Grace's recovery was slow but steady. She commenced remaining awake for longer periods. She began to recognize me, though her memories were scrambled and confused. The doctor stated her cognitive function was returning, but it would accept time, perhaps years, perhaps forever. I informed her about my job, about my life while she'd been asleep. I informed her about the promise I'd maintained, about the daily visits, about never providing up. She listened with eyes that expanded clearer each day, holding my hand with strength that increased week by week. One evening, 6 months after that initial squeeze, Grace spoke in full sentences for the initial time. Her words were slow and careful, but they were there. There's someone else, she stated, her eyes on my face. I can inform. Someone who assisted you through this. I commenced to deny it, but Grace squeezed my hand. Don't lie to me. I can observe it in your eyes. You appear different, softer somehow. Someone taught you how to permit individuals in again. I thought about Amelia, about the manner she'd protected my time, comprehended my choices, donated money she thought I'd never comprehend about. Yes, I admitted, there was someone. My boss, actually. She observed what I was executing and she comprehended it. Grace smiled, her face still pale, but alive in a manner it hadn't been in 4 years. I desire to encounter her when I'm better. When I can hold a genuine conversation, I desire to thank her. Grace, I'm not jealous, she stated softly. You maintained your promise to me. You never provided up, but I was gone for 4 years, and you required someone. I'm grateful she was there. Months continued to pass. Grace relocated from the hospital to a rehabilitation facility. She relearned how to walk, how to utilize her hands properly, how to think through complex thoughts. Her progress was remarkable. The doctor stated she was one of the fortunate ones, that most individuals with her level of injury never recovered this much. A year after that initial squeeze, Grace arrived residence. She still required physical therapy and cognitive exercises. She still tired easily and struggled with certain memories, but she was residence. She was awake. She was back. And one evening she inquired me again about Amelia. Invite her to dinner. I desire to encounter the woman who observed you when everyone else just glanced past you. I didn't desire to. It felt complicated and messy and incorrect somehow, but Grace insisted, and I'd never been beneficial at refusing her anything. So I inquired Amelia to dinner at our residence. She attempted to decline, but I informed her it was Grace's request. She couldn't state no to that. The dinner was awkward at initial. Three individuals dancing around everything that had occurred, everything that had almost occurred, everything that couldn't occur now. But Grace possessed a manner of cutting through awkwardness. She always possessed, "Thank you," she stated to Amelia over dessert. For observing him, for protecting his time, for comprehending what most individuals couldn't. Amelia's eyes filled with tears. He created it easy. The manner he loved you, the manner he maintained his promise, it altered how I observe everything. Grace reached across the table and accepted Amelia's hand. Love isn't finite. It doesn't run out when you provide it to multiple individuals. You assisted my husband survive the most difficult years of his life. That signifies your family now, whether you prefer it or not. That dinner became monthly dinners, then weekly coffee encounters. Amelia and Grace became genuine friends, bonding over shared interests and mutual respect. And slowly, carefully, with Grace's blessing and encouragement, something deeper began to expand between Amelia and me. It accepted years. Years of Grace recovering fully, of rebuilding our marriage, of ensuring our foundation was solid. But eventually, Grace sat us both down and stated the words that created everything possible. You two love each other. I observe it and I'm not threatened by it because I comprehend you both love me too. Love expands. It doesn't divide. We became three instead of two. An unconventional family that created sense to no one but us. Amelia relocated in 2 years after Grace arrived to residence, and somehow it functioned. We all possessed roles, all possessed space, all possessed love. Years later, at a small gathering of friends, Amelia leaned over and whispered to me, "I never thought I'd discover someone who comprehended that some promises don't possess expiration dates." I squeezed her hand while Grace smiled at us from across the room. Neither executed I. And that was sufficient. More than sufficient. It was everything.